我酒保。
We're going to open the meeting. If anybody hasn't signed in, there's a sign-in sheet by the front door. And I'm sorry you had to walk around. Our doors are broken. Okay, Zoom reminders. No members of the commission are actually on Zoom, but we will be joined by the peer reviewers from Zoom. All votes must be taken by roll call if there's people watching on Zoom. And members of the public body must be clearly audible to each other and to members of the public. Remember, when you want to start saying something, to say your name and your address. Okay, we're going to open the meeting and start with the minutes.
Everybody has them.
These are the minutes from our last regular meeting, which didn't have a solar component.
It's the 17th, right?
Yes, April 17th.
Yes, excellent.
Any additions or changes?
Not quite there, hold on.
Yeah, okay. That system is, yes.
You said
Fine.
that they're all-
Fine with me.
Okay. Tom?
I'm good.
Okay, great.
All right.
Okay. All those in favor of passing the minutes?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, now we're going to open the hearing for 530 Glendale Agri-Solar Proposal. DEP WE 173-10238. Just going to read you a little brief summary of the narrative. Glendale Road Development LLC proposes to construct a commercial renewable energy facility at 530 Glendale Road, parcels 29160 and 29165. This property is zoned R6. The primary development site is 53 plus or minus acres, owned by Jonathan Guinapero and State Line Property Management LLC. The facility would be a 4.95 megawatt AC ground-mounted solar photovoltaic array with required electrical equipment, transformers, switchgear, et cetera, and a lithium-ion battery energy storage system. It would be operated in conjunction with Ledge Valley Farm as an agricultural ground-mounted solar system, where the interior array fields would be utilized as pastures for grazing sheep, cattle, and poultry. Tonight we have, as I said, our two peer reviewers on Zoom. Melissa Cody worked on the notice of intent peer review, and Jean Christie assisted with the stormwater review. I'll also note that Patrick Coyne from the planning board is here, probably with a lot of questions. He's the chair on the planning board for this project, as the normal chair has recused. And our responsibilities with the planning board, especially as pertains to stormwater, overlap a great deal. So we're trying to keep coordinated so that the demands are equal. Okay. We have an almost, yes.
Sorry, Ted, would you mind letting me in, please? Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, we need him for sharing. Okay. All right. We have an almost overwhelming amount of information to review this evening, but it's probably our last opportunity to get information from Melissa and Jean. Because we only contracted for 2 visits to the actual commission meeting. It's sometimes possible if we need to contract for a little extension, but at the moment we don't have one. So tonight's the night to ask your questions. Jean and Melissa, do you have any comments about that? That's problematic. See, Rory did it.
Yeah.
It's when he put Rory on.
You know, mute, there you go.
Jean and Melissa, do you have any comments about whether you're willing to extend to another meeting or review or not?
I don't think we have a problem with that. We would just want to update or give you an amendment for that work. Depending in the commission can determine if or decide if, you want us in person, if you want us virtual, whatever. We can talk
Okay.
about that either probably maybe at the end of the meeting.
Yes,
Once we
thank
talk
you.
about things today.
Okay. Because we have so many things to review, I'm planning on setting aside the wildlife habitat evaluation, the riverfront restoration plan, the markers for the wetlands boundaries, the DEP definition of land and agricultural use, issues around the northern abutting properties, the agricultural integration plan for the animal part of the proposal, and safety operations issues for the next meeting.
We do have our wetland scientist at the party prepared the wildlife habitat evaluation here this evening.
Okay, we'll work in some comments then.
I'll give you a presentation.
He came all the way.
No, that's excellent. Well, we'll just have to switch it in. Okay, and I'm hoping to schedule 2 meetings for June. We have some commission members leaving, and I'd like to do this while all the informed people are still around. One the first week and one the third week as normal. Okay, the last meeting on this project was April 17th. When Melissa and Jean presented their peer reviews of the NOI and the stormwater report. Comments on both have also been provided by the commission and DEP, and on stormwater by 2 other consultants, Gary Weiner and a long-term resident and frequent consultant, and an opinion solicited by one of the residents from Stephen Garabedian, whose comments were PhD. All of those were forwarded to the proponents and the reviewers, but I don't at this point have any comments back for either of those people. I think Gary was planning on coming to this meeting. Thank you.
It's not interviewed.
Okay,
Yes. If those comments were addressed.
okay. We can always also entertain them at the next meeting if we need to. Okay. Since then, the proponents have been developing responses to both the original peer reviews and to other comments from all the various entities. We have Rory Walker here, who represents Glendale Development. Nick Fensandolo, who represents Level Design Group, does your physical engineer, right?
Civil engineer.
Civil engineer. And he's done a lot of the write-up work on this. And
Stephen Riverty, I'm principal
Ah.
just at Goddard Consulting. They hired me to come in and look at the wildlife habitat and riverfront restoration.
and you're from
Goddard Consulting.
Goddard, so I thought.
We can't hear who that is.
Okay, so you got to talk really loud.
Riverty, I'm
Unfortunately, we don't have microphones, not even the
a wetlands
dumb ones that you hold up.
ecologist. They hired me to do the habitat evaluation, got riverfront restoration.
About it.
Goddard Consulting, yes.
who did also a lot of the original site work. Way back when we were doing the ANRAD and everything, they were around. So they're very familiar with this property. All right, so we'll start, if you will, Nick, with a description of just an overview, none of the little nitty gritty, an overview of the alterations that you've made for the new plan.
Rory.
I'll share right now.
Share.
He's.
It'll be a pain. I have to have permission to host. We did this last time. I can't remember how we did this.
Put it
Oh,
on
yeah.
board.
And I gotta remember how to do it.
I think you just make them the host.
What's it under? Do you remember?
Is it under my name? You click on my name. Can you right click my name and make me?
Oh, it's under your name?
Could be wrong.
Oh, yeah, go to the dots. See. Make host.
Up
Make host, it's up in the middle.
there we go.
So while Rory's getting that going here. We took a look at all the comments and made a single plan revision. Dated April 22nd, 2024. And then we also submitted individual letters addressing the different comment review letters from Time Bond, one town. Third addressing comments from the community. So that's what was submitted along with the wildlife habitat evaluation, the planting restoration plan, and an updated stormwater report.
Can you all hear him now?
I'll talk louder? Okay, I'll talk louder.
You may have to stand up. Here. Just talk really loud and move.
I'll just talk louder. If you guys need me to stand up, I will. So
And move your chairs wherever helps you.
So taking a look at all the comments, we've made some significant changes to the proposed layout for the solar array. One item to go over is the number of racking tables. So this layout, as we have today, we reduced the total number of tables, not the panels, the physical tables.
Different.
Yes.
What's the difference between the table and the?
Well, a panel is what, 2 feet by 3 feet, Rory, and the table is the thing that they're mounted to. So the racks, like the technical rack. So that's how we're counting the quantifying the amount of solar panels on the site. So essentially we reduce the amount of panels by about 11%. The reduction occurred in this center area here, where we had, there's an upland knoll, and we originally had a driveway coming across here, that we're gonna have a small wetlands crossing. So in looking at, ways to have less impact to the area, we decided to completely remove all those panels that were located here, remove the driveway, and remove the crossing. So that, reduces the impact to the bordering of vegetative wetland and to the 25-foot no disturb zone significantly. By doing that, we removed all of the wetland disturbance, which was approximately 2,500 square feet and an additional 4,000 square feet of disturbance within the no disturb zone for our crossing there. So the current layout only has disturbance within the 25-foot no disturb zone in this area right here, where we need to cross, we're not crossing the wetland, but we get very close to the wetland with our driveway in order to gain access to this 12-acre area. So there's no other areas where we're encroaching into the 25-foot no disturb zone. There's no longer any wetland filling, and there's no longer any wetland replication areas as we're not doing any filling work. Our fire tank, which is located in this area here, we provided some additional detail and we specified an actual tank for that area. So we have our full details, which were the amount of disturbance required to install a fire tank. I know that was a question raised by both planning board and some members of the public. So it's going to be a 30,000 gallon subsurface tank. It's a fiberglass tank, standard package system for fire storage tank with associated pumps and other types of equipment to fill and get the water out of the tank when needed.
Add to that, Judy, I spoke to the fire chief based on your request, and so I walked him through the site. And I was able to answer all of his questions, so he was happy with what we
Good.
All right, go to the landscape plan, please. Thank you.
let's see,
Yeah, four.
see. Sorry,
Right, oh, nice colorful one. Okay. So this is our updated landscaping plan. It kind of shows the area, the ground cover types that we're going to be, what we're proposing to have throughout the site. And it gives a better picture of some of the changes that were made. So in this area through here, there is an existing gravel track or driveway, as we're calling it. We're proposing to have that removed, and this whole any area in blue is proposed restoration area within the 200-foot riverfront area. So that'll go with planning and discuss that with more detail, but we're going to be removing all this impacted area where there's a impacted gravel, and we'll be planting this area in blue here to help restore at least the 100-foot corridor from the edge of the identified stream in this area. We can't restore the entire 100-foot corridor as we have the driveway in this existing area in the barn, which comes through there. But our goal with this updated plan was to provide as much restoration as we can within those impacted areas, even though some are gravel covered, some are just maintained field areas. So we're looking to provide restoration in this area through here and through here.
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
Is there a reason that you didn't go the whole width up in the upper one? I mean, since the
Well, we
owner
still-
is the same owner.
We still need the the whole width here?
Yeah,
Well, this is the property line here.
yeah, but
So
you
we
could
can't-
expand it into his property,
Well,
right?
no. I can't do work on other people's property.
But it's his property, the
This-
same guy that owns this
here.
parcel.
No. This is land owned by others, not by.
Not by Jonathan?
Not by Jonathan, no.
Okay,
Jonathan's parcels, it kind of comes along and it's up here.
all right.
But this area where we're ending the restoration is the, located field area. So anything beyond that is wooded or currently vegetated. So through this area, it's primarily field grass area that we'll be restoring. And through this area, it's mostly field and grass area from the section of the driveway into the site. We did, remove this decent amount of panels through this section of the riverfront area too, to minimize our impact. We're now under the 10% permittable threshold. Before we weren't, with our reasoning being it's already disturbed, it was already grass area, but we understand the requirements. So that reduction of array panels in this area does bring us under that 10% threshold that you're usually trying to shoot for. And also, if you look at the numbers, with all this restoration area, there is some credit to be had there with the restored areas.
Okay, is that a good place to cut off? So that we can go to the peer reviews?
Yeah, let's see if I had anything else of importance to note. Those are the main changes. Mostly everything else was, dealing with stormwater comments, updating the basins, doing a little bit of other work, but yeah, those are the main items. So, yeah, I guess.
Okay, we can look at the details as we go along. Okay, Melissa, do you want to go through your peer review?
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen or just?
Yes, that would be nice.
Okay, well, here goes. So as soon as I'm able to, authorized to share, I will.
Mhm.
He's on.
We just need little buttons.
I gotta,
to push.
I have to undo him maybe.
No, we can have more than one host, can't we?
Had to reclaim host to me.
Okay,
Make host. Had to reclaim it back to the.
okay. So,
Did you get on there now, Melissa?
Yep, one moment, please. Okay. There we go. So, so we formatted our letter in the same way that Jean formatted the stormwater responses, where there's a lot of text reiteration just to facilitate working through the process, not having to go through multiple documents. So the first is more an administrative item. Yes? Where we noted that in the documents we initially received, we did not see a signed copy of the actual WPA Form 3. The response was that the commission has that in their files, and if that is the case, then this requires no further discussion. Is that
yes,
great? The next comment had to do with Section 7 of the bylaw, which requires coordination with other boards. The response was that a special permit and a stormwater permit had been applied for with the planning board. You know, our response to that was that, you know, it's within the commission, we defer to the commission to determine if that's sufficient to satisfy the intent of Section 7 of the bylaw. So if Section 7 requires notification of not just the planning board, but other municipal departments as well. So we defer to the commission in that instance. If you are satisfied with the level of coordination and opportunity for other, boards and departments to
I think the proponent has been very flexible about going to other boards.
So you're satisfied?
Yes,
Okay. The next comment had to do with providing an alternatives analysis regarding impacts within the 25-foot buffer zone. As they described in their introductory presentation and detailed here, they have significantly modified the design and reduced disturbance within the 25-foot buffer zone. I think more significantly, they've eliminated direct impacts to bordering vegetated wetlands, as they noted. Based on this, we, you know, and in consideration of the overall scale of the project and the site, you know, we obviously it's the commission's decision, but to grant a waiver for work in the 25-foot buffer zone. But there's clearly been an effort to tailor the design to avoid and reduce those impacts.
anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah.
What they're talking about?
So are they proposing that you waive the 25-foot?
There is 300 and some feet, no, 695 feet, I think it is. There is still some intrusion into the no disturb zone where paths cross and that sort of thing. Maybe we should go back to the map, I suppose. Can we do that?
Sure, I'll stop sharing so that you can.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to so we can see the maps.
There was a slight follow-up to that question or recommendation to the commission. There's roughly 683 square feet of disturbance for grading. Just looking for further clarification of, will that area be allowed to revegetate naturally, or is that going to be kind of a routinely maintained footprint within that 25-foot no disturb zone?
And where is that?
Well, it is.
Up top.
Can you point to where the 600, where the area of grading within the 25-foot is?
Or go to.
Up there.
Two.
I think that's it.
It's a more blown up view of it. Right there.
Okay.
Yes. Sure. Not gonna show. So it's in this section right here where we're looking at. So may I respond to the question?
Yeah.
So yes, the goal is to let that area revegetate. There's a section of retaining wall through there that obviously won't revegetate naturally, but other than the small riprap pad for the pipe outlet and the block retaining wall, which is about 4 feet high, the rest of the area will revegetate naturally. I think I specified, wetland seed mix to be planted through that area to kind of get it going and get back to what it is today.
Okay. While we're up there, have you calculated if you just put the road straight through instead of going over next to the property line, how much more intrusion that would be into BBW and no disturb zone?
To pull the driveway,
Like instead of making that little loop, just make it straight through the wetlands.
to bring it all the way outside the 50-foot zone.
Yeah,
I haven't come up with a number, but I do know that, to have a limited crossing, it has to be your last resort. Or, that's typically how DEP would look at it, where they'd want you to look at all their alternatives before you apply to fill wetlands. So in the situation we had previously, there was really no other way to get to that upland knoll other than going through the area where we were initially proposing the wetland disturbance. We chose the most narrow area to have the least amount of impact. But in this area, there's a possibility, granted we received approval from the planning board, to not impact bordering vegetated wetland. That's
so
what
the planning board is okay with that, Patrick?
he can't comment on that.
But you're saying they said it was okay?
No, I said if they.
If they did, okay.
If they don't allow it, now we have a situation where it hasn't been allowed, and now we have to come back to you to fill wetlands because we're not being allowed to install
Yes.
the driveway where we're showing it that would provide the least amount of impact, if that makes sense. I mean, I can come up with a
Okay.
number if that's what you're looking for, but I just want to explain
Eventually,
why
Um,
we're not doing that, because we have to look at all their options, even,
yeah.
using adjacent properties if possible.
As a contingency, how do you feel about that possibility, going across the wetlands to get it away from the edge?
I prefer it where it is.
I
Where it is?
too.
Yeah, personal. Don't forget they allow 2 stream crossings in Zero Summer Road, GDP.
Yeah, I'm just worried about the neighbor, because that's awful
Yeah.
close to the edge.
Yeah, it's close, but there's really no, the residence is over 500 feet away. We'll keep all the work on the property, providing a solid fence through that area, landscaping. We're doing our best to mitigate that impact with those additional measures. But, that's, like I said, if it's not allowed, that we'll have to address it. But if it can be allowed, we have to request to you that this is how we proceed.
Okay. Any comments? John, is that you back there? Can't see your
John
face.
Matthews, North Munson. And I made comment to the planning board at their meeting, and let me back that up, I was one of the original members of the latest solar bylaw. In the bylaw, okay, it's 50 feet. What we decided was 50 feet and then 100 of the other 50 could be, if you will, violate. But that's sacrosanct. The neighbors should not be imposed with that, meaning that is violation of the planning board, of the planning board, and say the same thing. I'm suggesting that they look, see if they can find it another way. That's just blatant.
Any comment, Patrick?
No, I wouldn't want to say anything tonight. This-
Okay,
No, yeah,
there was somebody over here who had a,
Well, yeah, Janet, it just sounds like no matter what, there's gonna be.
there's going to be a what?
Infringement, there's gonna be, invasion of that zone.
Well, right now, it's pretty marginal. It's just a little bit of the buffer. Even though it's a no disturb zone of the buffer, it's kind of a specialized area closer in. If it was moved straight, it would actually cross the wetlands. So it's a tough decision, I think.
Yeah, I have one comment, Cindy Galvani, 594, in regards to, Nick's comment about that, the houses, it doesn't, the waiver would probably be good and fine because they could plant some grass and stuff. And our house is 500 feet away anyway, but we actually have plans to, be building, it's a little cottage down there, right near our stone wall down there.
Mm.
And so we are going to be living down near our property line. We'll be submitting all the applications and everything. So our primary place that we live will not be 500 feet away. It will be right there on our property. Just to let Nick know.
Okay.
There was a letter from the commission, I believe, that they were going to actually approach the abutters to see if they could do a delineation on their property as well, as it was in that area.
Yeah, right where the culvert goes under?
Has that been done?
No, not as far as I know.
We won't be doing it. The whole area was looked at.
Well, they didn't go into that area when they did the ORAD. They went out the corner and they did a little piece subject to flooding, but they didn't do that area.
We went back after the fact for the intermittent stream. And that whole area was looked at thoroughly by the consultant at that time. If there was BBW just beyond, just north of the inlet of where that intermittent stream starts, the tie and bond consultant would have said there's offsite BBW up in that area.
They didn't look at a lot of the stuff that's around. They didn't even go mostly onto Jonathan's property. They just did what was.
No, they looked at.
Our ANRAD review was limited to the subject property.
Right, so,
Correct.
there's a map, a picture. Could you go into oh, did you put that in? Yeah,
Oh, in there?
yes,
Oh,
in there.
all right. Gotta get control.
I have some recent photos that are from that, right in that area, I believe.
Dr.
The one that says May 15th.
Right here,
Yep. Okay,
and.
now it says property image that's at the north
Property right
line,
there,
yeah. Just,
And which one?
A and B. Okay, here's a swamp cabbage growing right near the wall. And the next one. And that, there's clearly a lot of water there. So
I have no context where that picture has been taken from.
that stone wall there up in the corner is the stone wall she's talking about, right?
That's the start of the intermittent stream,
Right.
that the water comes under the.
So when the culvert, my understanding is that when the culvert was sized, it wasn't sized presuming that there's water coming from this side, just starting essentially at the culvert.
Correct. As a professional engineer, I looked at available mapping and sized the culvert to take any flow that gets to that area. I wouldn't specify a pipe that doesn't work. But that picture you're showing, that's inside the wetland. And if you go straight through there where all those vines and stuff are,
Right there.
under there, that's the start of the, there's like a cart path right there, correct?
Mhm.
And then water flows under that cart path. It's like an old, like stone, I don't even call it a culvert, just like a couple stacked stones that make
Yeah.
a place for the water to travel, storm flow to travel through that underneath, and then it gets on the other side.
Melissa, can you see this picture?
No,
Melissa?
I can't see whatever's being shown on the screen there. It's not being shared through Zoom.
Okay,
Judy, may I ask a question? Is that taken on the landowner's property or is that
Yes.
the abutter's property?
the abutter's property.
Looking at the landowner's land.
I didn't go there, it was sent to me.
Understood, but I didn't know if that picture, that person's on John's property, looking up, looking north, or looking.
No, I'm not sure you pronounce it, but Yavacolis?
Yeah, I can speak to
Property.
that if you like. This is actually on my property, and this stream follows the rock wall between Cindy Galavati's. That water runs all the way down the stone wall between my property and her property and runs to that. And that stone wall is the stone wall between my property and Winnipero's property.
So my only concern is that we sized the stormwater culvert
Yeah.
large enough to take this into account.
Yeah, I can send in calculations too, if that's what you guys would want, but
This is
just wondering
down the
where
cart path.
along the cart path was this taken? It's just hard to get context of where you are. I mean, behind that wall, water could pond up
The
anyway.
far corner. If you look at the corner between the three properties, where the three properties join, that's where this is.
Want to
If
go
you
back
want
to a
to
map?
map, I'll show you.
Yeah, it must be that. Right.
So it's right here. Yeah, see, it's right before that bump in the property line, right? So it's near that. My sense was that it's close enough that if there's a support that's built for the road with the culvert in it, water coming from there has got to go through that culvert.
Okay. And when was this taken?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Last Thursday.
So just if you can consider that.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to Rory. He's the one paying the bills for the wetland scientist.
Okay. We'll get to it again, I'm sure, when we get to the stormwater part, but I just wanted to bring that up while we're up here. Okay. Melissa, can you continue?
Yes, can you
I gotta get you back.
enable? Thank you.
Yeah.
I gotta come back.
Delineating. No. With the Zoom.
That's a G, I guess. Should not be numbered. It's not.
Yeah.
I can.
I don't know. I can't operate these things. I run a meeting with all the people showing on the screen.
Trying
and
to
that's
figure
it.
which button to push. Are you-
Okay.
Don't.
Okay.
My brother's right here, kid.
No.
Oh, are we going back to the map?
Last property.
I don't know. What do you want? What do you want now, Melissa? You want control again?
If you want me to resume the comment review, sure, yeah.
Number 4. You have it?
There we go. All right. So actually, I have a follow-up question there, regarding the comment that was made that area that's in the 25-foot no disturb zone would be seeded with a wetland seed mix. More a question, I guess, what would the benefit of seeding it with an upland area with a wetland seed mix be? Not already wetland.
I'm sorry, it's New England Conservation Mix, not wetland
There we
mix.
go. Okay.
Apologies.
Nope,
It's been written
that
on
was-
my plan. I knew I specified something specific for that area.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
So this was the next comment, number 4, has to do with defining limits of disturbance. On sheet 2, there is an area between utilities poles 4 and 5 where it just kind of ends. It's not, is that, where is the terminus of the limit of disturbance between there and Glendale Road? So just minor point of clarification there.
I had a note about that as well.
Okay. This was in response to the flags that were placed, flags A through E, to close the gap in the BVW boundary. Just noting that was not part of the peer review that Ty and Bond performed of the ANRAD filing. Seems defined by topography, but we have not reviewed that in the field. Talking about the next comment, details relative to that subsurface water storage tank in buffer zone. And again, there was more detail provided, more detail shown on the drawing. And we just, with the note that the limit of disturbance had been modified, we just recommend that the commission require provide summary to resource areas and buffer zones, since that has changed from the initial application.
Yes, so the limit of disturbance line doesn't go north of the driveway anywhere, right? Except way at the other end.
Correct, yeah. So for where the tank is, it's south of the driveway. And I had to make it a little bit larger area, given the size of the tank and how tall it is, and the depth of the excavation we'll need to have. So I did have to expand it, didn't go into the 25-foot no disturb zone. Marginally expanded, but it does not encroach to the 35-foot no disturb zone. We tried to keep it as close to the gravel driveway as possible. We didn't want to get too close because a 30,000 gallon tank, that's a 10-foot diameter tank. So it's a large excavation. So we don't want to compromise the roadway when it gets installed, but you do want to have access to it for the fire department. So we were balancing that, but I think we were able to fit it in relatively well in an area that I believe it's mostly grass right now. It's not a vegetated part of the buffer. So it is still buffer zone. We do note that, but it's not in the 25-foot notice zone, and it's a grass area currently.
Any questions? Yes, Gina?
Hi, Gina Stabilo, 219 Ames Road. I'm a little confused about, want to go back to talking about how the flags were placed and then a question prior to the fire storage tank.
Mm-hmm.
Ty and Bond could actually go out and check to make sure those flags are accurate now.
No, that's what Melissa was noting. They haven't been
I had
checked.
a hard time hearing her.
What?
I was having a hard time.
Yeah, they haven't been checked by Ty and Bond. They've been placed by,
I placed,
Mr.
a couple weeks ago, but it's a very obvious wetland border in that area.
Okay, so I want to go back to the fire tank or the water tank for a second. The diagram that was provided, it looked like there was a tank and then there was like another piece of equipment right next to it. The plan, it's like a tank and then almost like a pipe.
Yeah, the tank setup won't have that second part of it. I couldn't get an image without that, so I was
Okay,
trying
so
to
the
provide
whole
it.
size for just the tank without
Or-
the pole.
That is correct, yeah, that's for a separate application if you're connecting to a building.
So the way this tank works is just they come down the driveway, they fill it up with water, and then they go away. So it doesn't have piping
It has
anywhere
a
else.
few standpipes, one for filling and one for evacuating water when it's needed.
I'm assuming it's the same one as they have at the power station on Allen Street.
Yeah.
If you go by, you see a couple of pipes sticking out of the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just curious because I wasn't sure if the hole accommodated both for the tank and that pipe, but if there's no pipe, then the hole's probably fine.
correct, yeah, there'll be no, I forget what they call it there, but yeah, that was the best image I could get on the manufacturer's website
They do have a pump.
for the,
Yeah, it had some type of like next to it.
yeah, that's if you have a separate pumping system that would feed a sprinkler.
Sprinkler system.
Yeah, so that's not
He
necessary.
doesn't have a good picture of,
I understand.
Of just the
I was
tank.
confused about. it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so suppose something fell into the tank and you had to empty it, would you be draining it into the BBW?
No, there's nothing that would fall into the tank.
That doesn't ever happen.
Standpipes with connections and they're kind of like a fire hydrant. You have to take the connection off.
item tops, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not going to be open to the air for anything, any animals to get in or anything like that. So they'll have to unscrew the.
I was thinking more of a dumb oil person.
No.
I've seen that happen, straight into somebody's
Yeah,
basement.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay, Melissa?
Continue, okay. So the next comment, number 7, has to do with the the proposed underground electrical conduit versus overhead electric utilities, and alternatives to doing a trenchless technology that aligns it beneath the wetland. Go to the page here. So those are the images that were provided in the response. You know, it's short-term versus long-term. It's a question of short-term versus long-term. The HDD in theory avoids direct impacts to the wetland, provided there's no frack out during construction. The footprint of the road is already disturbed, even though it is in other areas subject to jurisdiction. So it's really a matter of what potential future maintenance disturbance the commission would entertain.
Tom, Greg, do you have opinions on this? Do you understand what the question is? There's an underground,
Yeah.
can you go back to the other page?
Yep.
Right.
On the lower
Oh,
one,
sorry.
there's an underground line there that would be put in
Right.
using that horizontal drilling kind of stuff to
Yep.
get it in there. Which has materials that they use to do that drilling that when she says frack out could essentially pop out and come through the surface. I guess it's happened. And any maintenance that would have to be done if something got stuck in the line or whatever would require driving onto the BBW.
Right.
The alternative is to go along the edge of the road, which is, requires a trench. So it's more trenching, but it's easier to maintain in terms of not going onto the BBW. So as Melissa said, I think it's a tough choice to make.
Yeah, just. Anybody knows Mill Road with the little bridges at the very beginning of Mill Road, the little quick curve? There's a version of that goes under there for the gas line, the natural gas line. Very small compared to this, but
Yeah.
the same idea. And when Mill Road was just redone with the gas lines, they had to do the underground trenching.
And it's
Same idea,
nerve-wracking.
but this is just a bigger picture of it, bigger idea of it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Any comments? Gary, do you have any comments about that?
John.
I can't speak for Gary.
Oh, right. Okay, I can't call you Gary.
I think Gary had submitted his concerns to you in a letter that what he did ask me is to make sure we address it.
I do remember that when they did the May Street one, he was very concerned about that.
Sorry.
Melissa, do you have any more information to help us decide about that?
I guess maybe what would help the conversation, could be a discussion of, typical future maintenance if the conduit was installed via directional drill beneath the wetland. What would normal, what would be the activities around normal or routine maintenance of the utilities within the conduit?
None. I mean, this is, again, there was a 4-inch diameter hole, 2 of them with a 2-inch diameter hole for communications. And then inside there is a conduit with pipe and wire. It is my assumption that there will be no maintenance done on that at all.
The
Once
wires need
installed-
to be replaced,
Yeah, I would say,
they
if the
would
wires need to be replaced, you would just
sleeve them.
pull them through, right? You would have a pull line of some sort?
Worst case scenario, there's a catastrophic failure in 15 years of one of the conduit lines, then there's 2 options. You trench down the driveway to replace it, or you directional drill again. You wouldn't drive through the wetland to repair one of these conduits. You would redo the process, maybe 10 to 15 feet in a separate direction, so you have enough spacing. I don't know what the exact spacing would be. And then you would directional drill a new line, whatever impacted line, which it's very uncommon, would just remain in place. They pull the wires out and then that would just stay underground in perpetuity. But, it's underground utilities, the conduits generally never fail. There's no traffic load that would drive over this, or you have a heavy truck that would crush the pipe. So, I mean,
People always tell me that, but I watch them bring up a really huge pipe at Smith, not big enough for what they had to put in, so they had to retrench the whole thing.
yeah, so it would be
Yes.
maybe a third underground line at,
Yeah.
at the same spacing as between when you have those 2, that'd be option 1, not allowed. Obviously, if that happened, you'd still need to come back, get a new permit through the Conservation Commission. Well, didn't matter which way you went, because you'd still be going through buffer zone area and riverfront area if you're going to trench traditionally through the driveway, or you would still need the permit for the directional drill.
Yeah. So you don't have strong feelings either way,
No, I mean, I like the underground.
the underground one? I just thought if we could decide tonight for that, because they have to keep redrawing it both ways. It would be nice when they do the redrawings if they didn't have
I
to.
kind of like the trench along the drive.
You like the driveway version?
It's just, there's more disturbance with that.
As long as as long as installing the other one doesn't fail. It's not, after it's in, I think it's pretty stable. It's the putting it in that, because they're driving fluids essentially through to get it through, and they can rupture into the wetlands.
It's more like a screw. It's not, there's no liquids involved.
You're not doing that this time? Because when you have a frack out, isn't that the understanding, is that stuff comes upwards?
When you
Maybe
see this,
PD
I'm
has
happy to show a
really
video.
slurry.
Excuse me, Melissa?
I was saying that most horizontal directional drilling requires some sort of drilling slurry, which is what the frack out, what fracks out, what breaks through the ground surface at a weak point. So if their methodology is a trenchless technology that doesn't use a drilling slurry, then that's a different conversation about that risk.
There is slurry, but again, the device itself is like a screw that goes into the ground. She is correct about the slurry. There is slurry.
Okay.
This is a little complicated for me. It's just, I think this needs to be more looked into. It's, Rory just says, oh yeah, you just put a couple of wires under there, but this is very complicated with the wetlands, doing the underground thing, and the wetlands are all there. How are we assured that we're gonna be able to protect them?
I think you can't be. It is, as I understand it, relatively low likelihood, and it's a pretty common procedure. As he said, it was used in
On Mill Road.
on Mill Road. It's used very often when they have to get a wire that's small enough under a stream. If that stream is really stable, they'll go far down and then across and then back up. There's also occasions when we haven't allowed it across the stream and they've attached it to a bridge instead. So there are alternatives. The trenching around, that's going to disturb the whole edge.
Maybe the other option. Instead. So, like that as well.
Well, it would count into disturbed area. When they're totaling up how much area is disturbed, some of it would get included if it goes through a wetland. Which is like at the top at least.
So, but when they drill to put the underground, there's gonna be fracking, so.
Frack out.
There's a they use a like a screw with a slurry to keep it so everything doesn't jam up. And it's possible sometimes for the guiding pipe to break and the slurry comes up into the wetlands. It's a relatively small pipe, so there wouldn't be a ton of it there. I think we won't vote tonight. If people don't have strong feelings, we'll look into it a little bit more.
I tend to go for the underground. I think it's safe enough.
You do? Okay,
Personal opinion,
and Tom favors the underground.
but he doesn't.
So what happens if they were to do this underground drilling and they hit rock? What happens then?
Then they have to quit.
They drill through it or they have to blast it?
On the ledge valley.
They would have to go through it or around it. They couldn't blast under the BBW.
So it would just be like, just like that.
No, it'd probably drill right through the rock.
Drilling through it.
Depends on what kind of drill they.
Yeah.
Probably go right.
Would just take longer and cost more, but
Yeah.
it still gets done.
If they decided they couldn't do it, they'd have to come back to the Concom and say, can we go around the edge instead?
Change, yeah.
So that's an option.
Overall, we feel that this is less impact. That's why we're proposing it this way, just so we're clear. I mean,
Yeah,
sending the conduit down the driveway or through this way, it's really, the costs are roughly the same. It's a little bit more wire to go the other way, but it's
yeah.
really,
Should we vote on it or do you want to wait?
that's why we're proposing it in this
How big
fashion.
is that, Trent, that underground?
Roughly.
I think it's between 4 and 6 feet, but again, depending on where ledge is.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want to avoid the ledge, so.
Okay, just curious. I remember having that mentioned.
And it kind of goes, the way they do it,
Right.
it's like an arc. So it's not going to be a straight run. It kind of runs like a long
Yeah.
sweeping arc.
Yeah.
It goes down, hits like kind of a low point, and then works its way back up to the terminal point.
Okay. Well, we will reconsider that June 5th. Try to double check. Okay, Melissa?
Okay. So comment 8 had to do with, just clarifying what kind of what the stockpiles to be removed in the riverfront area consisted of. And what how these areas were going to be stabilized, because areas beneath large stockpiles are not, it's just going to be bare soil. So they clarified the location, and the intent to, rake loam and seed to stabilize those footprints, and then otherwise restore in accordance with Goddard's riverfront area restoration plan. That's all a reasonable approach. And again, we reiterate the extent of modification to the design within riverfront and other resource areas is, I don't know if significance the word, but there have been changes that deviate significantly from the numbers that were proposed or presented to the commission on WPA Form 3, page 3. And these are all factors in how the commission evaluates the project's compliance with the applicable performance standards. So we're reiterating our recommendation that the commission require an updated version of WPA Form 3, page 3, and then compliance with the riverfront standards.
I agree.
No, yeah, I should have done that. So there was a lot of information.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts, so, you know,
I wanted to make sure it was the final before we got to that point. In case,
I understand where you're coming from. It's, but, you know, when you arrive at that point, when you arrive at that point, then that is, you know, kind of a summary recommendation there.
Thank you.
The next comment had to do with concrete and material washout details with proper proposed protective measures. They added a concrete washout detail to the plans, and that is you know, we note that has been completed.
I had trouble reading that picture of the washout. Does it have a barrier to keep?
yes.
It's like a concrete pad, but is there anything else for?
Concrete pad, you essentially excavate out a shallow hole
Yep.
and you line it with, I think it's 80 mil poly plastic, a few layers. And then when the concrete truck when they're pouring the pads, they'll have a little bit of leftover concrete in the truck that they call it the washout.
Yeah.
Will then drive to this established area outside of the buffer zones that's well established. And he'll empty out the concrete into the plastic, into the hole. It then dries, and then it's dug up and properly disposed of, through
Okay.
means in a dumpster.
And where is that going to go?
I had a spot for it, with erosion control.
Back in the old days, when they cleaned out the concrete trucks, they could clean them out anywhere.
Yeah.
You can't anymore. In a
Oh, yeah.
controlled environment, and the slurry that's left is taken care of properly.
So I have a spot on the plan. I mean, we don't have to pull it up, but you know, the horse track,
Mhm.
and you know where there's that existing gravel area just outside the barn. So right where that gravel area kind of hits the track, it's on C 3.0. I can point it out to you on your little plan. It's the only area I can get outside of the 100-foot buffers and kind of keep it out of the way.
This is
There we go.
somewhere.
And it's right there. This is concrete washed out. So this is the 100-foot buffer line.
So you're digging down right here?
Yeah, outside.
That little mark,
Correct.
that
The
dark
whole
mark.
area is outside of the buffer zone.
Okay. It's 3.0 in the new maps. These don't have it. I got them. Is it not?
Kind of the center of the page. We'll see.
That's the barn there.
Yeah. I don't even have a 3.0. Yeah, this one has a 3.0. It's different. I see.
Can you pull it up?
Okay, thank you.
Next comment had to do with clarifying sending and receiving pit locations, as well as any conduit string out areas. You know, if the commission approves the HDD beneath the wetland, we recommend specific pre-construction submittals detailing the contractor's means and methods, depth of bore, sequence of construction. And in the event that there's you talk about ledge or a boulder or something like that, if in the event that the equipment gets kind of stuck in the middle, what is their plan to retrieve it? If they can just pull it back, or if they have to do something else. So again, it's kind of like a contingency plan so that the commission is aware of the potential activities on site.
So for that, I would just recommend that be a condition of approval that we provide a drilling plan, because this is the works years down the road and we don't know who's going to be doing the drilling. So once a contractor is selected, we'll have them provide a plan on how they're going to do the work, what their contingencies are, typical protections they have in place for sensitive areas, things of that nature. and then that be submitted to the commission before the work begins, kind of outlining all that. But it's hard for us to nail those items down when I'm not doing the drilling and we don't know who's going to be doing it. I think a condition of approval that would require that information prior to the work being done or start of construction would be a fair.
Okay,
I will agree that that is a typical pre-construction special condition. When certain, atypical means and methods are proposed.
Judy, just a question.
oh,
Because there is no drilling plan, and I spoke to Gary about that. Basically, he said that, you want to make sure that they prevent any migration of, groundwater from the wetland along that cable with the drilling. You're going under the,
would it go down the pipe or how would it?
well, not so much down the pipe, but I don't know how close they're drilling to the wetland without a proper plan. Okay, if they drill too close to the wetland, there could be migration.
You're talking about the two entrance points where they're drilling?
For the drilling under the wetland.
They're actually drilling under the wetland. So he's saying,
But you have to be careful that you don't go too close to the wetland. Okay?
At the entrance points.
at the entrance and exit?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, but they're far enough away from the physical entrance and exit points, far enough. Then when they open a hole to put the machines in.
yeah,
And it's that water from the wetlands can start pouring into it.
okay.
Too close, yeah.
So that would be
Right?
part of that.
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I just want to make one comment. On the plan, it's noted approximately where we're going to be starting the drill and where it comes out, just so that.
Those big boxes, right?
Got it, perfect.
Okay.
One second.
So that would be another part of that review. when-
Yeah, the drilling.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Again, we've kind of touched on this next comment a little bit preemptively, and that is the concern, potential for frack out and unintended impacts to the landscape above the alignment. The response was that if the commission required a condition for pre-construction drilling plan, that they would, once a contractor selected, they will provide that. We have no further comment. The next comment is about the concrete block retaining walls. At that.
We're back up to that top space.
Yeah.
Okay,
They provided a cross section. Again, looking at the detail that was provided, it seems quite steep. And then there will be a concentration of flows that could potentially contribute to erosion in close proximity to the wetland boundary. Again, this comes back to what modeling has been done, what is the contributing area, what kind of flows will this area see, and then, why are we changing can the culvert be matched to the existing topography?
So the culvert's actually going to be less steep than what the grade is through that area. We're going to kind of fill it in. And, on the plan, we detail, it's about a 3 to 0.3 feet per foot pitch, which is, so it'd be 3 feet over 100 feet if you were going to look at the pitch of the pipe that way.
when you say fill it in, on the entry side or the exit side?
On the exit side, we're kind of raising up underneath there a little bit as we're filling. That's where the disturbance is required in the 25-foot no disturb zone. So we're doing a little bit of grading, and then we're going to have we kind of kicked it over a little bit so we could put a splash pad in. So we do have a little riprap pad that is proposed at the bottom, but I did size it, so I got aerial topo for that whole hill. and looked at the flow paths. So I can provide that information, do a little separate, summary on how I size the pipe. But, the pipe slope itself, I don't believe it to be, too aggressive. It's kind of working with the natural grade through that area, and we're providing, an outlet protection pad, where today there's a culvert there today, and there's nothing that exists there today. Like I said, it's just a few, looks like granite slabs that were kind of stacked on each other to form this little culvert that exists today. So, but yeah, I can provide the additional calculations if that's what the comment is trying to
Yes.
get to. Yeah, okay.
Okay. The next comment had to do with addressing BVW performance standards, the elimination of any direct impacts to BVW means that this is no longer a relevant comment. So no further comment there. Again, the modeling of the next one similarly, because that wetland crossing was eliminated, that is no longer relevant, and there's no further comment regarding that, the culvert proposed at that location. So the next one had to do with impacts to streams and wetlands. There's been modification, again, this goes back to summarizing the currently proposed design, which we discussed previously, and the need to evaluate where you are with design modifications and approval before finalizing that, but so that the commission can evaluate the final design relative to the standards. The next comments have to do with addressing the riverfront performance standards. And again, it comes back to, there has been significant design changes relative to riverfront in particular. So addressing the standards relative to the currently proposed impacts. After that, it has to do with the wildlife habitat evaluation, which was completed, but I understand the commission desires to discuss that maybe at the next meeting.
And actually, it turns out we have somebody here
Sure.
did that, so we probably need to discuss it.
Well, then in that case, I turn the floor over.
You want to discuss that now?
Sure. All right, well,
I have a question
Yes.
before we move on.
Mhm.
For the last review we just did, there was talk about, the site's been designed to mitigate impacts to East Brook and all that stuff, but we haven't talked about how they're gonna control the temperature of any runoff going into East Brook. Is that more stormwater, even though it was discussed in the NOI?
Which one, you're talking about 16?
I don't have the original, I don't have the document you guys were reviewing. I was looking at, they summarized the site up, but there was still no talk of how they're gonna mitigate impacts to East Brook. In the response.
We will probably look at that more when we get to the stormwater half that Jean's gonna do.
Picture.
yeah, if you pull up.
But I am going to ask for a more detailed restoration plan for the riverfront restoration, because there's two drawings. But we'd like to have something that says what kind of filters are you going to put, how are you going to stabilize it, how are you going to keep trucks and things from going into it, all that sort of, just a narrative. I'm going to send you a list of all that stuff so that you don't have to. Okay,
Yeah, you had one of those figures you had that had the restoration area on it and that had the areas, you have the different vegetative zones. Or I think that's what it was.
You need control over it?
Yes, please.
Well, while he's pulling that up, good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Ribberty. I'm a senior ecologist, wetland scientist. I've been doing this for 24 years. I live next town over. I'm a principal at Goddard Consulting. We were retained by the applicant to conduct the habitat evaluation and look at potential impacts to riverfront area and come up with a restoration plan or enhancement plan to the riverfront area to maybe offset some of the impacts that are there. So that was kind of the task that I was brought into
think so.
more recently on this. So there was kind of the habitat assessment, there were kind of two components to it. There was assessing the impacts to the riverfront area, which is under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act. There was also another, I think, added request, maybe it came from the commission at an earlier hearing about evaluating some of the impacts to the buffer zone for the area that's kind of out in the back. Kind of right side and sheet. So I'll talk about it in two different kind of, right, so there's front stuff with the front, that riverfront area is fairly compromised right now. It's got a lot of invasive species. There's an existing field, it's mown or hayed or whatever it's done to maintain it in a field state currently. So the habitat value of that is fairly limited. There's lots of invasives between the field and the stream there, the perennial stream on that side. The area here, you can see that's in the cyan.
That perennial stream, which one are you talking about?
One on the unnamed one, I think it is, right? That one doesn't have a name.
The westward one?
Yeah, correct. So the area that's in blue there is area that's now currently field. That's it's within the riverfront area that's outside of where they're proposing to work. So my habitat evaluation included that area and the parts of the riverfront area that they're going to be converting to the solar array. Most of the area, I think all of the riverfront areas that they're converting to the solar are either disturbed, degraded, or field now, pasture type habitats. So habitat value is fairly limited. A lot of potential area in there for restoration because there's areas of that field that they're not going to use. And I'll talk about my restoration plan in a little bit. But that area is not overly that useful for wildlife, particularly wetland dependent wildlife, which is what the Wetlands Protection Act requires us to review and look at. There's nothing significant there. There was no unique habitat features. It's a maintained, essentially hayfield pasture type setting right now. On the other side, once you get into the forested area, that's all buffer zone that we evaluated. There's no set DEP standards for evaluating wildlife habitat impacts to buffer zone, but it's a common ask that people have of me from time to time. It's easy to evaluate buffer zone habitats, but in that sense, I'm looking at more generalized wildlife that could be there, things that could potentially use the site, looking at the different types of vegetation and natural communities that exist out there. Currently it's forested. The forest age out there isn't incredibly old. You can tell the site was probably cleared in relatively recent history, not, anytime in the last 10 years, but the age of the trees there are fairly young. They're all fairly even age stand. It's probably 30 years old, 40-year-old stand of trees.
What time of year did you do this?
I've been out there multiple times. My initial evaluation was probably February and March this year, looking at the vegetation and the tree classifications out there.
Did you look for turtles?
Did I look specifically for turtles? No. I was looking for habitat suitability, like what's the habitat context of the site? What could use the site based on habitat features that are there?
Okay.
Not any particular wildlife.
I just know that all the territory around is, especially across the street, is natural heritage.
Yes, yeah.
And there was one found in the driveway just when this project was beginning,
Okay.
right at the front edge. It's not on the mapping yet because they only do it like every.
Yeah, and I do a lot of natural heritage work too. Every time there's been plenty of rare species I've submitted and that doesn't make the map because it's not
right.
far enough away. They have their own science that they put behind how they draw their polygons. But general habitat out there, it's, average upland forest, it's useful. I'm not going to say it's not useful for certain things. It's habitat, right? It's forest, deer, coyotes, turkey, songbirds. All those things can easily use that habitat. Not necessarily protected species, not necessarily anything that's uncommon, but there would be a general shift in usage of that site by clearing trees. You can say that about anybody's lot that you clear trees on. It's really no different here. There'd be a conversion of that to something that's more pasture-like with this proposed use, a solar array with essentially pasture underneath it, as I understand it. So there's that conversion. There's always on these solar sites, there's always a brushy edge that develops over time. There's the cleared area, then there's the trees, and there's always this kind of area between the fence and the tree line that they have to maintain for, solar, whatever, shadowing effect on the arrays that turns into shrub habitat, which ends up having to be maintained like that. And that's actually a fairly useful habitat. If you want to talk about deer and turkey and that type of stuff, they tend to be attracted to habitats like that.
This is outside the fence.
Yeah, it would probably be, some of it could be inside the fence. I don't know exactly where the fence goes relative to that, but generally that stuff typically is outside the fence, but there's some maintenance to it that's needed to keep the trees from turning into 100-foot trees again to shade out the array. So those end up tending to be shrub zones that develop over time. And again, there was nothing overly unique or there was nothing special about that area. I didn't see any, unique features for any specific species out there. General wildlife use, yes, it's a very large habitat block. I actually started my evaluation before they removed that road in the middle and some of the solar array. So, some of my initial comments on maybe, having some fragmentation kind of go away, not having to bisect the wetland and eliminate some of those wetland crossings. So it's more of it's less of an encumbrance for wildlife movement. The overall size of this array is fairly small. I've seen a lot of solar projects in my career. I've seen ones much, much bigger than this. This is fairly small scale for a solar site. Use of the animals out there, I look at it no different than a farm in that sense. There'll be animals in a field, right? The solar array itself doesn't really change, that potential usage of the wildlife. It's a fairly quiet facility. There's not a lot of noise. There's not a lot of light. There's not a lot of traffic coming in and out to disturb wildlife. Things become acclimated fairly easily to kind of a quiet site like this on the perimeters. So it's not, in that sense, it's not really that disruptive. But, will there be some disruption of the local population of wildlife during construction? Sure. Is there going to be, some number of less species of deer or something out there? Sure. There's going to be less of that, but none of that's, wetland dependent stuff that you can really come at and regulate in that sense. I don't want to say that there wouldn't be any disturbance to wildlife. That'd be silly. Obviously, you're clearing forest. There's some disturbance. It's just, is it allowable? Is it permissible to the commission? So that's kind of the summary of the habitat assessment and the findings. I don't know if you can throw up the restoration plan, if you have that on there.
Sure, I can get it for you, sir. Let me stop sharing.
So as part of me looking at the riverfront area, I also looked at the part of the riverfront that they weren't doing anything with and trying to go, okay, well, they're not doing anything with this. Is there a way to enhance these parts of the riverfront, increase the riparian zone around that stream, enhance the habitat value of that area? And then there's some opportunities in there. There's a lot of invasives, both in the riverfront and in the wetland. I'd say, average it out, probably 50% of the vegetation in there is invasive. It's edge of a farm field. Typical, you get a lot of bittersweet and multiflora rose and buckthorn and all that stuff around those edges. So my thought is, where they're going to have their fence, the end of the limit of construction, everything outside of that, that's not currently forest, put back to forest, and everything out there from there to essentially into the wetland, close to the property line, is kind of I call it a riverfront enhancement zone. It's not creating riverfront. It's already a functional riverfront in that it's forested. It's kind of going in there and improving it, getting rid of some of the invasives, maybe supplementing it with some additional plantings. If you're kind of taking a lot of invasives out and there's really nothing in the understory. So there's the green zone with the dots are kind of riverfront reforestation zones, and the blue areas are kind of managed invasive zones that are, they're forested now, but they could be improved. So that's kind of the summary of the restoration plan. I tried to keep it simple and graphical and easy to understand. Sounds like you might want like a write-up that comes with it.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Put text to this too. I tried to keep it in construction notes on, I think, the third sheet, just to kind of make it more user-friendly to a contractor that has to do it. But yeah, I can easily convert this into like a narrative.
Thank you.
that's kind of the summary, what I was tasked with and what I did and what I found, but
Okay, any questions?
fine for questions and.
So when were you out there? In
I mean, the summation of my assessment was from multiple times being out there, but the bulk of the categorizing the trees and doing the vegetative cover maps was probably Marchish.
And you didn't observe any turtles over there?
By March, I wouldn't have seen them.
No, they're under,
They're still on the.
you have to be actively looking for them because at that point they're under the duff in the forest and just maybe their back sticks out. So there's,
Yeah, I'm assuming you're
you
talking
have to look.
turtle, eastern box turtle, or is it?
Yeah, mostly we have box turtles. We
Yeah, I
do
mean-
have wood turtles as well in
Yeah,
the
with-
area,
Area.
which would be closer to Eastbrook.
Exactly. Yeah, box turtle, you wouldn't even see, maybe you could start seeing them depending on when they come out of hibernation, but it all depends on the weather. This year they were a little later than normal.
Does it make sense to, as the fence is being installed, have a screen to make sure there's nothing stuck in there? Because we're not going to be asking for the fence to be raised because that seems to just trap animals inside. So.
Oh, like a turtle protection plan type of,
Well, I'm just thinking of a one-time screening as the fence gets sealed up.
just to almost like a sweep, like if it was a rare species site, just to make sure that, I mean, I could talk to them to see if they're.
Yeah.
But that's that.
Should the
Doesn't seem like a
commission
big
wish that,
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable request. Can that be that condition? How do you?
Condition of approval,
Yeah,
but we could specify.
Oh, I could
Yeah.
It could be part of,
rate it a little bit, like I could define what that sweep is and what it would encompass, so there's.
And we would keep it solely in the riverfront zone, not around, not all the fence for the property, right? Just in the,
actually for box turtles, it could be the whole property, but it would be less near the river. They don't come out of the river or go to it. So
Just the general uplands.
you'd be talking about the areas where you're going to surround with fence.
There's also the pond, Judy, that is not on Jonathan's property, but it's right over the line. And we get the big box turtles even on my property.
You do.
We eggs from that pond.
On the
So-
front?
There's
It's almost an impoundment. It's on the property next.
Yeah,
Next.
I know, I've seen that on aerial photo. It's kind of up and over, yeah.
Yeah,
Box turtles would not be using an impoundment. I mean, it could be another turtle species, but box turtles are not an aquatic species.
yeah. They don't usually go in the water. They go by the water.
If they're that big, it's a snapper.
Yeah.
Well, those would be snappers.
snappers.
Yeah, they're not protected.
They're not-
No, no.
I mean, we don't want anything to happen to them, but they're just not protected by special
Right.
rules.
They're all over.
Yes,
I did try to check into any records there might be about that being a vernal pool, but I couldn't find any. So vernal pools are where like salamanders and wood frogs get born.
Is that
But
the
it has
impoundment
to
that's on the
be-
river, like it's actually on the
Correct.
stream farther up? Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be pretty untrammeled and there have to be no fish or other things that would eat the eggs. So
Yeah.
it
If it's
doesn't-
run of stream, it's probably likelihood that it's, to say it's water wet all year round, then it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Those amphibians could support other ones.
So the snapping turtles might not be able to travel as far as they are used to.
right.
They're pretty adaptable, though. They're not like some turtles, like wood turtles have to have a certain amount of sand and gravel and super clean water and a lot of other things for them to be happy, but snappers, you can comment on that.
Snappers will be nesting all over outside of this fence. I mean, that's
Yeah,
cleared and open. There'll be plenty of areas for them to lay eggs.
okay.
Another question.
I have a couple questions. This wildlife habitat evaluation, is this normally peer reviewed?
No,
So we accept that, but we didn't accept any of the wetland flagging that they did during the NRAD process.
well, he's qualified to make a habitat. He has the certification to be able to do it.
Okay.
So he's like his own peer review. He's a peer review of Nick and Rory.
I come into it, I know they hired me, but I come into it as a scientist. I just make an evaluation. I don't have a case, a pro or against solar. It's just, I report what's there. This is my
And you
assessment.
made it sound like Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin are gonna come walking out of that solar field too. It sounds like it's Shangri-La out there and just all the animals are going to just live under the panels in harmony and there's gonna be no sound or anything. The way you made it sound, I wanna move in under the solar. I mean, here's the point. He is a paid consultant for them, just like in a courtroom, anywhere where you get a paid consultant, a medical consultant, whatever. And I know that you just said, Judy, that it's, and I respect your credentials. And do you do this a lot?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've been doing this for 24 years. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, you just pay as a paid consultant for solar for 24 years.
Not necessarily just for solar. No, I don't work on only solar sites.
Do you work in Munson? Is that your?
No, I live in Wilbraham. I work all over the valley.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do rare species stuff. I do restoration sites.
Yeah, and for people building homes.
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
And again, I respect your credentials. So you're a scientist and you're a wildlife scientist. In your opinion, do you think this is the best spot to put a solar field in?
That's not,
You've got to be out of your mind.
No, he
That's a-
doesn't evaluate that part. He just his job is to inform us what animals are there, what animals might be affected, what habitat is there, more importantly. If we had a screen, then the screen would look for specific animals that are there at the time.
One last question. Have you ever done a job for a company that paid you where you cited against
Judy.
them?
Can we keep the conversation to the application? I mean, it's kind of getting
That's okay.
a little bit out of hand.
Well, we like to make you feel comfortable.
I mean, if she has questions about the report and the comments made, that would be
yeah,
appropriate.
I've found things on sites that my clients have not liked. I've
Yeah.
found rare species on sites during my habitat
I respect
evaluations.
that.
Yeah.
I respect.
Okay.
They have to adjust.
Melissa, do you have any comments?
Judy.
I wasn't done with my questions. I know Cindy.
Oh, okay.
Fine. But the fence still being in the riverfront area on this plan, is that still considered an intrusion to wildlife? Even though it's like, oh, they moved the fence, but it's still on the riverfront?
It depends.
Yeah, it's counted in disruption.
Okay. So as I didn't have a chance to read this entire wildlife study, but I did find an interesting paragraph regarding the noise of the equipment. And in one breath, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but in one breath, it was, the equipment won't make much noise. And then, well, if it makes a lot of noise, the animals will get used to it. And then, well, if it makes noise, we'll put noise mitigation measures. So which is it?
I think we'll discuss the noise mostly next time.
Okay, but I just want to point that out because the animals aren't going to get used to it. They're going to move. Just like people would.
Yeah, noise is a concern
Okay,
of many people.
okay. Just want to make that point. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I have a question. How are birds affected? Animals.
By the panels, by the panels directly or? Well, I mean, any forest birds that are in the forest isn't there, obviously, they're gonna lose habitat. You know, chickadees and titmice and things that are more forest nesting. The panels itself, there's not a lot of studies on, do the panels directly affect birds? There's been studies on grassland birds when they put panels in fields that were nesting habitat specifically for a grassland species. And now the panels disrupt their view shed, but these fields are too small for really to attract grassland nesting birds. But you know, some things could work and live in between the panels. But there's not a lot of studies on, are the panels themselves directly impacting bird species? I haven't come across that before, but I mean, the panels directly, I mean, I'm not gonna say that the fields are gonna be great bird habitat. I'm not saying they're gonna be attractive to bringing birds in, so they're not.
Yeah.
I wonder, animal runs and this and that, you know, it's a continuous forest.
Yeah,
So how, part of it is being disrupted.
Mhm. Yeah.
How many acres are being,
well, I don't know off the top of my head, like,
Of forest?
yeah,
On the right side, the big area, it's about, I'd say there's about 12 acres plus or minus to the whole site, but about 10 on that side. That whole right side is,
Yeah, that upper northeast corner is mostly forest.
and as Steve said, it's all young forest, like that area was farmed up until the 70s. It was all clear, that whole back area. You can still see the walls, there's still just disposed old equipment, not mechanical equipment, but
yeah.
it was a working farm up until the 70s from the information I was able to gather. And since that time, it's vegetated with, you know, smaller trees and other, mostly invasives, unfortunately, because when you go from, as Steve said, a farm use to just letting it vegetate naturally without any supervision, you're going to get mostly invasive. So that's where we are with them.
Okay, we're at 7:30, so I want to get to the stormwater while Jean's still here. Since,
Madam Chairman, may I just ask one question before we get into that?
Mhm.
I just wanted to respectfully ask the commission to follow through on the request in writing that they wanted to do a delineation of that northern area. Particularly since Ty and Bond basically admitted that that wasn't in the scope of their delineation.
If we recontract with Ty and Bond, I will ask them to go look at that.
But I thought the commission was actually going to, that's something they were going to take on themselves.
Oh, no, we don't do delineations.
Oh, they would do it. But yeah,
We get a professional to do
We
it.
only can, they'll, only if we decide to contract with them again.
We usually go look at it, make sure we agree and look at the wildlife and the plants and things that are there, but we don't actually do that.
We don't have the expertise to do that.
Now, Window does.
Well, if she comes on, yeah.
I didn't introduce Wenda. She is from Granby and recently moved here. And she has extensive experience on conservation commissions and with other kinds of information. If she is on the commission, then it would be a possibility that they would do their own delineations. So we're hoping that she decides to join the commission. That would be a really good thing. All right, Jean, can you do the stormwater for us?
Happy to. I'll also share my screen if you let me.
With, G,
And while we're figuring that out, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I think so.
it should be coming to you.
See it?
I suspect we'll run a little bit over 8 o'clock because I want to make sure we get everything from Jean, just in case.
Yes, we,
You see my letter?
yeah, you can see it, yes.
So when we received revised documents, stormwater report, and a response to comments, we reviewed them to make sure what the applicant said was going on was happening, and then kind of looked at what's happening now with this. In general, I think we've got a lot of things that are addressed, which is great. I do have a few highlighted that I really want to talk about. So looking at the changes that were made, there's really no changes to a few of the beginning stormwater standards. So standard 1 and standard 2, they still meet these standards with the revised design. And that's, no new stormwater discharges that are untreated to any waters of the Commonwealth. And then standard 2 is peak rate attenuation. We're going to get into that part later when we talk about curve numbers, because that's going to be a bigger discussion that I'm going to save for the end. So standard 3 was about groundwater recharge. We had asked for, additional test pit information. That stuff has been provided to us in the revised stormwater report. We found that the stormwater basin design reflects, the 2-foot required separation in groundwater or bedrock. There is one quick little note on here about an elevation inconsistency on the drawings, which isn't going to change anything in the design of the stormwater, just something we want to note for the plan edit. The second comment about groundwater recharge was in regard to the quantity of impervious area shown. There was a discrepancy previously that has been clarified so that we are taking account all of the new impervious area on site. So that's been taken care of. C was regarding groundwater mounding. So there was no groundwater mounding, or there was a groundwater mounding analysis provided previously. We needed more information on how some of this, how some of the numbers were developed, because it's kind of gray in the stormwater handbook. But with the very extensive response explaining exactly how we got all the pieces, we were satisfied with that groundwater mounding result. And so that has been designed to comply with the stormwater standards in the handbook.
Can you quickly describe what that is?
So yeah, that's under a basin or stormwater management feature that's infiltrating. We want to be sure that the water that's going into the ground is not causing groundwater underneath that basin to raise up too high, either too high to impact the function of the basin or to break out on a downstream slope. That's, just how groundwater infiltrates in, and then the mound gets created, and then the mound will slowly go away over time.
Thank you.
So the next few, standard 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 were already met previously. They are still met with the current design. Standard 9 was regarding the operation and maintenance plan. We needed locations of the stormwater management features on a plan for that document. That is one kind of standalone thing that we just need all the information in that one package. So that has been addressed. Standard 10 is regarding an illicit discharge statement. The applicant has responded saying that one will be provided prior to construction, which is an acceptable timing. According to the stormwater standards, we agree. We agree that the commission should include a condition of approval that requires that statement, a signed statement. So that's the 10 stormwater standards. Looking into the wetlands, the DEP wetlands policy about solar and how stormwater management should be worked. Number 11 here is regarding the spacing between rows of panels. Thank you for clarifying that it's not panels, it's rows, which is correct. What the applicant has responded is saying, or I'll step back. Our comment was in regard to, the DEP policy says your panels need to space this far apart. The applicant has proposed something less than that. So in order for us to get behind that, we need to know why and how grass was going to be growing underneath the panels. So this is more vegetation growth kind of question. Couple factors here. My comment says it's been addressed, but there's a couple points I want to point out here. The first being this isn't a concern. How the panel spacing is not as much of a concern to me in my experience with solar facilities, where we have existing grass. So a lot of this site does have some existing ground vegetation, not in the woods. So there I'm less concerned. I am a little concerned about being able to establish grass underneath panels, where we have nothing to start from or very little to start from. So we may need to talk about that one a little bit more. And I think I have another note somewhere. I may just find it.
What would you do in that instance? Put in plugs?
I don't think so. I think it's just being really careful about what species of grass we're planting, making sure we have really good growth medium for them. Sometimes in construction of a solar facility, we don't want to bring in a ton of loam, but we probably need to in some areas to make sure that this grass can grow. There's definitely species that will grow underneath the solar panels. They've been designed for that at this point. So I think it's probably, we're probably going to want to create a condition that, may, or have a discussion at least that may specify, different seed mix under the panels.
Okay,
And I don't know if the applicant has any thoughts on that while we're here.
My only thought is that with our response, we submitted photos of different solar systems across the Commonwealth.
that looked pretty ratty, frankly. Those, only one of
share
them
those.
looked kind of lush. The rest of them looked really bare to me.
It is dependent upon the time of year in which the photo was taken, but the
Yeah.
point that I wish to make is that all of those sites were completely bare when that growth was done. So understanding Gene's concern, in my opinion, the growth will occur on these panels regardless of the spacing between rows.
And in general, I can agree with that once we're being sure that we've got the right materials there.
Fair.
And we put a condition in for review every 6 months or something like that for a while or something.
Or if we do an extension, they could evaluate
Well,
the plan.
we're gonna have to come back to close out the permit. So if we don't have what we call substantial growth, I'm not gonna sign off on it unless I see 75%, where I would sign and say everything's been installed properly. So that wouldn't occur until that point. That's the threshold.
You'll be under a SWIP anyway, right? You'll have to meet that standard.
Correct. And we'll also be working under a stormwater pollution prevention plan for a NIPD's permit. But overall, the final stabilization will have to be there before we come back to you to officially close out the permit and move forward after construction.
John?
I do have a concern, Gene, with what you're saying. Have you included the information that the agricultural section of this phase is going to support that? In other words, the grass. I'm asking you, have you reviewed that? They didn't give you how many animals they're going to have grazing there. You have no idea. So how can you say that this would be fine?
I think that's a topic we're going to talk about in a little bit when we get more to what curve number are we using for this site? What is that post-construction amount of runoff that's coming off from the site, which is later in this topic? I think they're related though.
Okay, we'll probably have to circle back to this then. I'll listen to your curves.
Okay.
We're good. Okay.
All right, so continuing on, we were talking about, this was in the previous design where we had the wetland crossing and we had swales that were kind of going down to that wetland crossing. Those have been eliminated, so this comment number 11 is now been addressed because it doesn't happen anymore. Comment 13 is in regard to the elevation of the drip edge of the panel. You know, the DEP guidance wants it no more than 10 feet. The applicant is saying it's now 4 feet. What the
I would
applicant
note that cattle are taller than 4 feet. So
the applicant can respond to that part of it. But anyway, the applicant has suggested that we can add something to the operation and maintenance plan that requires that like a stone drip edge is, would be installed if there's a problem. While I say that that's generally a good thing to have, I do want to point out to the commission that you may want to think about this one a little bit more. You know, in my experience have seen crushed stone along the drip edge and then none. And I've seen them both work just fine. We may want to look at areas that may be more conducive to erosion. In more steeper areas, how the panels are oriented with the topography, and even have that put in now versus later. I don't think we need it everywhere, though. I do want to clarify that. So we may want to either talk about that now or table it for later.
Can you go on?
Yeah.
I'm not.
I have it highlighted on mine, so I can remember to talk about it later.
Would you turn them? Would you turn the whole array?
You can't, because they need to be facing a certain direction to.
So what do you mean when
sunlight.
you say orientation?
So it's going to be the orientation of how the panel, we want the panel, the drip edge line, so the bottom line of the row there, to, you know, when it's perpendicular to the topography, it reacts differently than when it's parallel to the topography. When it's perpendicular, water will flow down the panel and then sheet flow, you know, flow this way in a more concentrated way. Those are the concerns. Those are the locations that I'm probably most concerned about.
Okay. Question?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, I have to, I have
Oops.
a question, so somebody online.
Oh, somebody has a question online. Steve?
Hello, my name is Steve Garabedian, and I'm a hydrologist, and I'm assisting Ms. Gina Stabilio. I have a point I want to make about the mounding analysis. And in particular, from my look at the information that's in the most recent stormwater management plan, Basin 3 fails under the conditions that they have in that report. So, for example, their test hole number 3, they have refusal at 42 inches in that test hole. And if we take that 3.5 feet, subtract it from the ground elevation at that test hole, we end up with bedrock or ledge at 576.5 feet of elevation. If we then take that from the bottom of the elevation of the bottom of Basin 3 at 578.5 feet, that's only 2 feet of sediment between the bottom of Basin 3 and the ledge that they're showing in their own data in this report. Now they then use a saturated thickness in the Hantush calculations of 3 feet. So how do you have a saturated thickness of 3 feet with only 2 feet of sediment? And if I were to use this correctly, which is to say the Hantush analysis, which is readily available, by the way, online, it's a USGS product, free. You can download it. Anyone can download it. If you use what really should be there, which is 0 feet, because there is no water table in that 2 feet of, or in that 42 inches of sediment that was found there. If you use that, clearly the analysis shows that Basin 3 fails the 3-day requirement.
Jane, do you have a comment on that?
My only comment is that we're going to relook at that one. I may have missed that, so I appreciate you pointing it out to me. It sounds, you know, completely correct in what you're saying, so we will definitely take a look at that, and we can revise our letter to address that.
You should also take a look at Basin 2. All right, because Basin 2, although it becomes a bit cloudier as far as exactly what the saturated thickness is, because there's more material there. So how thick the actual saturated thickness is becomes a bit of a question. But nonetheless, if I do the analysis, it looks like Basin 2 could fail also under the mounding analysis. So I also have, Ms. Chairman, I also have comments about the curve numbers, the CN numbers that Ms. Christie is about to talk to about. Whether I get to it tonight, whether I can speak to it or not tonight, I would like to make comments about that when that's possible.
Okay. Jean, you want to continue?
Sure. So looking at comment number 14, this is where we start to get into some of the, you know, engineering comments of the plans, where we looked at the riprap channel, you know, had a certain shape on plan, but what didn't have the same shape in a detail or cross section that has been addressed. Oh, this is the next comment, number B, was about, this is a hard one to explain, how the grading of this swale. So this was, you know, when you're coming in from the main entrance and then you turn left, there was a swale inside of the road that's accepting runoff from the street, from the roadway or the drive aisle. The way that was previously graded made it look like you were using some of the driveway as your swale. So we asked for that to be clarified and cleaned up a little bit so that there's a clear edge of pavement and or edge of driveway and edge of swale. That's been addressed. The discharge of the swale was like in letter C. We wanted to see a level spreader outlet at the end of the swale just to reintroduce sheet flow versus that channelized flow, which is what, you know, often creates erosion. That's been addressed. And looking at number 15, we disagreed with a delineation of a subwatershed that has been addressed and revised. Looking at number 16, you know, this is where we get into what is new impervious and not, and what requires total suspended solid removal. We did ask for sediment forebays to be included as a pre-treatment. They've been added, but we'd like to see a detail on what those look like. So we'd like to see that added to the plan. And then number 17 is probably the biggest comment of the night regarding our curve number. So your curve number is the, you know, a number that we'll use in our analysis that reflects how much water will run off of a surface, how much water, you know, taking the water away that's infiltrating or transpirating, evapotranspirating. This is the amount of runoff that's created. In the analysis that was provided, we're looking at a curve number of 39. So this was relatively low. This looks like really good grass in a good soil condition. And this is where we talk about the grazing of it. You know, grass, pasture is, I think we've got a couple options here. I'm gonna find my note. Of course, I can't find it when I want to see it. You know, pasture, continuous, we could forage for grazing, or a meadow was like protected from grazing and not, you know, having livestock on it. And so I think the argument that, or the concern that a curve number should be higher is, I think, a little aggressive. I'm comfortable with the curve number that's proposed as our final fully stabilized condition. Construction period stormwater is a completely different scenario. And I don't want to talk about that where we don't have full stabilization. But my opinion was I was satisfied with the analysis that was provided. And I know that there's other opinions in the audience.
You at that point, we can allow for another question.
That's fine with me.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, Mr. Garabedian?
Yep. So I respectfully disagree with Ms. Christie and the engineering analysis that's been done thus far. You really need to understand that, in particular, in the question of subcatchment area P6, which is the heavily forested area on the eastern side of the proposed development. This is an extremely stony, extremely steep slope. And what they're proposing to do is to rip off all the trees, cut them all down, take out all the stumps, take out all the brush, and basically take off all of the organic material that's on the soil or in the area. And in so doing, they're going to destroy the soil structure. So you're no longer going to have an A or B soil horizon. It's going to be all churned up. And this is not only from the removal of the vegetation, but also the fact that you need heavy equipment in order to do that. You need backhoes and you need bulldozers and the rest of it in order to remove this material. Now, this is on, in particular, as you will note, it's in an area where there's a soil classed 407C, which in the NRCS notes, 18 to 15% slope, extremely stony. this was very poor agricultural soil to begin with, and then you're going to destroy the soil structure by doing this grubbing activity. I don't see this supporting anything reasonable as far as a pasture or any kind of mature a growth of grass. And
Excuse me a minute. If that area is not proposed for a grazing field, is it?
It's gonna be grass. It is,
Yeah, but it's not one of the managed crop field areas for the sheep? Or is it?
the large wooded area to the right of the site. No, that will be
That's going to
grazed.
be a grazed field, okay.
It'll be grass and raised for the current proposal.
so
Okay.
the point I want to make, Ms. Chairman, is this. During the period of time, and it will take an extensive time for them to be able to grow anything up on that slope, this exposed slope is going to erode under any high rainfall conditions. And by that, I mean anything that's going to exceed an inch or so of rainfall. And you know how often we get high rainfall events in our part of the United States. So this is an extremely, in particular, this part of the development is extremely vulnerable to high erosion, particularly early on during and immediately after the development of this proposed solar field. And that's the comment I want to make.
Thank you. Jean?
I don't think it's my position to defend the applicant in this position, this topic. That was my finding and my opinion on the matter. I think it's up to the applicant to address the comment, that specific comment, to the commission's satisfaction.
Sure. So, hold on, we're just kind of go over a few items while they're fresh in my head. So anytime you clear a site, remove the trees, that whole area is going to be vulnerable to erosion during a heavy rainfall event. So this is not some sort of specific situation. That's why we have a stormwater pollution prevention plan. That's why we have erosion and sediment controls in place. We'll be looking at phasing in that back area because that's the only exposed area on the site. So we're going to look at clearing it, getting it situated in that back area, and then hopefully stabilizing it as soon as possible to minimize any chances of erosion through that back area.
Do you have extra steps that you're planning to take in that area?
During
Like extra,
a lot of that
I don't know.
gets pushed out during the final swipping prior to construction, but I can prepare a statement if that's what the commission would like to see for construction practices specific to that area. With regards to the curve numbers utilized in the analysis, I mean, I'm sure Ty and Bond will, reiterate my statement. I use standard engineering practice for this design. So as Mr. Garbedian, we can change any of the variables. But if we start changing variables away from the standard way of designing things, there's no way to analyze it based on certain standards. So yeah, I could change the curve numbers. I could change the runoff characteristics by a variety of different small inputs. But the way that the analysis was done and reviewed by Ty and Bond is the standard practice for doing these types of designs, these types of stormwater reviews and reports. Now, with regards to disturbing the subsoil, as noted, the vegetation through there, we're not pulling up 40-inch diameter trees. Most of the trees through that area, they're 6-inch, maybe 8.
3-inch, 8-inch.
But you are going to remove the stumps.
Correct. They'll just probably likely be bulldozed and taken out, which occurs all the time. And good curve numbers are always used in post-development analysis for those types of situations. You only use fair or poor when you're really impacting your subsoil that's way below the ground surface, not by pulling stumps from, smaller trees and things of that nature. Yes, there will be equipment back there to do the work. There's no other way to get around it. But we'll be working in a manner to quickly grade and stabilize the areas that need to be worked.
John, did you have any comments to that?
I do. And again, I hear what you're saying. We always all go to the standard and we design to the standard. But I'm sorry to say that the site may not be able to be designed to the standard. That's where you have to use a little bit more engineering common sense, okay? And you have to maybe take a more conservative approach to what you're proposing. So those are some of the things that, I can say, yeah, we designed it to the standard and all of a sudden we have a 100-year flood event or a 100-year event. And you know what? All that material is washing downstream into the wetlands or whatever. So you can't just say I'm designed it to the standard, and that's just incorrect.
So to clarify, we do design to the standards. That's proper engineering practices. To the comment, he's commenting on construction conditions. The stormwater report is done looking at current existing conditions and final stabilized conditions. That's how we look at projects and develop the reporting. Everything during construction is managed through the stormwater pollution prevention plan for a site of this size. There will be temporary sediment basins that will be installed. There will be other structural erosion and sediment control practices that are utilized. A lot of that stuff is, you implement and design as much as you can. And then once the site is cleared, you start to see where the concentrated flow paths are. And then you install additional measures to address certain areas. It's not, you have to design it a certain way or the standards aren't right. The standards are the standards. That's what we design to. But there's different phases of the project. We have construction. We have right when the site is cleared and at its most vulnerable, when it's exposed, and we'll be making sure to take proper precautions during that phase of the project. We'll be looking to stabilize that back area as soon as possible. The only way to really stop erosion is to stabilize the site. So that's going to be one of the main goals when we, when we clear that back area, along with installing other standard erosion and sediment control practices such as, like I said, sediment traps, sediment basins, temporary diversion channels, check dams. There's a whole slew of items that are going to need to be implemented on a site of this size when you do clear a large 10-acre swath of, wooded area. We're not saying that we're just going to go clear the site and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and then we're going to put the array tables in. That's not how it works. But to comment on the design and the standards, you need to know what you're looking at, what the standard is for the report and the calculations that are provided to the commission under the state standards, under the state requirements.
Patrick, do you have any comments?
As far as,
Any questions about this? Or suggestions about what should be covered?
well, I understand designing to the standard and professional skills and that's, I get that comment and I think that's a place to start, right? And is there, to address John's comments then about how do you solve for a variance to the standard, I think is what John is saying.
We're not.
So can all of that be done in the stormwater protection plan? The SWIP?
It should be, okay, but again, going back to all the engineering ends of it, you have to look at all possibilities. I can understand, it's easy to say, oh, I just designed it to the standard, walk away. Yes, we can say, sorry though, that's being arrogant and just saying that, you know what, we didn't look at this.
Okay. Jean? Any further comments?
I think it's up to collectively the commission and the applicant to determine what the next step is in terms of analysis, if you're going to require that curve numbers be adjusted.
Okay, thank you. We'll
And
definitely
We may
read.
talk about that later. I mean, that'd be like right now, so.
I'd like
Yeah.
to state for the record, the commission chose a reputable firm such as Time Bond, who are qualified professionals in this field. They design solar systems, they review them to review the project based on the standards. That's why we have standards.
Yeah, I understand all that, and you've said that several times, but
But
I think it's also important to consider other opinions, other viewpoints, and other climate changes that are happening right now. We have to, whether or not that's specifically in the current standards, we have to know that's coming down the line. We've had a lot in Hampden, a lot of flooding, a lot of, we're working with the municipal vulnerability project just to deal with our ordinary stormwater down our roads and things. So
On Eastbrook.
no, I understand.
definitely coming.
There are values, right, for a 2-year storm, a 100-year storm that
Yeah.
I can't just say,
I think we've
today I
covered
feel like
our
adding
legal.
4 inches to the 100.
I'm just not,
I can't
I'm
do that.
concerned about reality.
That's not reality in my world. I use the current information that's available and public for these types of things.
Okay.
I'll make that
Dean, you
clear.
want to continue?
Okay. Number 18 was regarding the actual hydrologic analysis and making sure that we are looking at apples to apples, and that's been addressed in terms of analysis sizes and areas. Number 19 was looking at what the proposed impervious areas were being accounted for in the HydroCAD analysis. That has been addressed and been accounted for. Number 20, I mean, these are all some very simple things. The infiltration basin 1 is not labeled. We wanted to make sure that it was.
It is, but it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
I blew it up with a
I think it needs
magnifying glass.
to clear it up.
See the fat line, but maybe you could tilt it or something.
Will do.
Okay,
Yeah, then some inconsistencies. Number 21, inconsistencies about labeling basins. I think that's been cleared up. And then lastly was, using an overflow spillway and making sure that we have that referenced appropriately. And that was all set.
okay. All right, Patrick, did you have any more questions or things you wanted to make sure got addressed while we have the peer reviewers here?
Did you want me to go through my comments or?
Sure.
Okay. So. I got the look of, is he really going to do that? All right, I think this, based on what I heard this evening, I think that you answered some of my questions already.
Now I think you're gonna need this.
Yes,
Okay.
voice.
All right, I can do that.
Okay, before he continues, Gina and Melissa, just in case you have to leave or something, I will send you a small proposal in the morning for extending this to review these final items.
Can I have the consultants just make a general statement as far as a percentage of the items that have been addressed with the revised submission and acknowledge that
A lot.
a lot has been done to manage and mitigate impacts to the resource area. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want to speak for the consultants, but that's how I feel with this new submission. And I think based on the comments I was able to read on the screen, I haven't seen the letters, that is essentially where we are. There are still a few items to button up. I'm not saying everything's perfect, but I would just like the consultants, while they're here, to provide a final statement on where they believe the plans are, the submission materials are currently.
Sure, I'll start. Definitely with the stormwater, there's been improvement, in this next round. I agree, there's still topics to discuss, but a lot of kind of the I guess, site plan stuff has been addressed. Some of the real technical compliance with the stormwater standards have been addressed. So I think we're doing great on our way.
So I will note that the goal of any environmental review is, you demonstrate that you've avoided, you've minimized, and then you've mitigated your direct impacts. And under the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's bylaw, direct impacts to resource areas are the most critical to address. And the revision of the design to not just reduce, but eliminate direct impacts to a bordering vegetated wetland, replicating and restoring bordering vegetated wetland function and value, especially ex situ, is challenging at best, even when well designed and well implemented. So that is, in my mind, a huge improvement over the original proposal. And I think the outstanding item is, as we spoke to several times, is the kind of final summary of where the design lands relative to final resource area impact numbers for riverfront particularly, and compliance with those performance standards. So I'd say there's been progress since the initial documents I reviewed as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Patrick.
Judy, could we ask Mr. Garabedian if he has any final comments?
Mr. Garabedian, do you have any final comments?
Is this going to be continued? Is this discussion, and in particular, the stormwater management plan discussion, going to continue into the next meeting?
It will probably be considered at all the future meetings because there's still issues. We plan to meet on the 5th and the 15th.
This is where I find, sufficient or significant deficiencies in the applicants, in their application. The issue of the discrepancy in the area. I mean, this is something that someone should have checked before it went out the house, before it even came to in front of the commission.
I'm not sure what you mean.
It's been addressed.
It's
no longer.
Yes, well, number 18. Yeah, in number 18. And that has direct implications for the stormwater management plan. Now, the second stormwater management plan has been improved. I will concur. But again, it does still pose a significant risk for erosion, in particular from the eastern part of this proposed development.
Okay, thank you.
So
I still want to give Patrick some time before it gets desperate.
for the record, I'd like to know Mr. Garabedian's field of expertise in site design of solar fields in general. I know he's a hydrologist, but design of erosion control and management systems, design of stormwater management systems.
There's a whole list of.
No, I read
attached to his
None of
comments.
that's on there. I would like to know why he's being classified as a competent professional in site
It's
design.
not. We're just taking his opinion, the same as we would take anybody's opinion that's sitting here.
When you
He's
print
just
out his.
another person that they called in,
People to take,
and
he's a qualified professional.
no, we never said that. We're not paying him. We're not listing him as a
Record, I would like to
qualified
know his
person.
qualifications in civil site design, erosion control. Instead of,
We haven't made you take any of his advice, so it's irrelevant.
but we're taking his comments.
We're taking everybody's comment who wants to comment.
Yes.
I mean, in my opinion, they're just comments. He's just a guy who
Okay.
knows something about this and who has things to say. And it's the same as the engineers who are among our residents and the other sorts of folks who've been on the planning board who have opinions. It's no different. We're not taking him as the source. We're just listening what he has to say. Yeah, exactly.
Should be accepted.
So
That's a valid point, but when I get a letter with a resume on it, I would like to know how it applies
Is-
to
he just did that. It's not
discussing this evening.
relevant to whether we take his
I just
opinion or not.
wanted to clarify for the record.
Okay. Patrick.
Okay. All right.
Floor is yours.
Floor is mine. So what I had, when Rory provided the permit applications, essentially, what I've done is I've read through it, and as you can tell through my stickies here, I identified places that I wanted. I read something here and I read something there. And I was trying to identify, are we consistent? Is it being said the same way? So that was mostly my exercise. Other things I'll talk about next week in our planning board. Okay, so the first general question, I think I've answered my own question here, was when you talk about the site is the 53 acres? Is that the site versus the size of the property is 53, the area expected to be disturbed is 21 and a half? We talk about the site, and I was thinking, you say here the site, and is that
So I can clarify that for you. So there's two parcels.
Yeah.
One parcel is a residential parcel, 530 Glendale Road.
Yeah.
That's the smaller parcel that's highlighted on the cover. And then the rear parcel, the larger highlighted area, that's the 53 acre parcel where the solar array is going to be. They're both included in the application because access to the site is going to come through 530 Glendale
Okay.
Road. There's an existing access easement that we'll be utilizing, and the utility poles will be installed
Yeah.
on that property, and that's where the fire tank will also be installed. So those three items are why 530 as a separate property, but it's still part of the project, is included in the application. But the solar array, the batteries, the transformers,
Yep.
the fencing, the driveways, the new work, it's all on the rear parcel, which the total land area of that rear parcel is 53 acres.
got it?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Okay. There's some typos in here that I can talk to Rory about. So as relates to the stormwater report, and as I read through this, I got to, this is just me trying to keep it complete. Turbidity. Statement here is, this development is not required to provide turbidity testing and sampling based on the current classification of the receiving water. The receiving water is identified as Indian Brook, not East Brook. Should the classification of Indian Brook be changed to where testing is required, the SWPPP will be updated to testing procedures and requirements. So I guess my question is that just an oversight? It should have been East Brook, or will this be different when East Brook goes in?
So, correct, it should say East Brook, and you do turbidity testing when you're doing, when you're pumping groundwater. So
Yep.
you usually run into those situations if you're digging deep foundations, where you're going to be digging into the groundwater level and you have to evacuate groundwater to complete your excavation. We don't anticipate any deep excavations associated with this property, especially if we're going to be doing the directional drilling as previously discussed. The only real excavation work is associated with the little earthwork with the construction of a gravel driveway, which is not going to impact the groundwater table or require groundwater pumping, and the installation of the surface concrete pads, which those will essentially be excavated down about a foot, compacted gravel placed down, and then the concrete pad on top of that. So there's no deep excavations. So there will be no turbidity monitoring as part of the stormwater prevention plan.
Okay, and I do see that you've identified it as East Brook and other.
Correct. Yeah, I must have
Okay.
lost that one.
Do your plans have a settling pool in them in case there should be groundwater that has to be pumped out during?
No, what we would do, what I specify it's, like I said, it's just a draft stormwater pollution prevention plan. If it's a small area where groundwater is encountered and needs to be pumped, they would use a sediment bag. So it's a large bag that filters out the water. And
Right.
we set that on a nice, an area that's not adjacent to the resource area, that's as level as you can get it from the resource area. You pump into that bag and the water cleans itself as it, evacuates through the outside of the porous bag, and then the sediment remains in the bag.
Okay.
That's usually, for smaller excavations, if you run into, spots where you need to do that type of groundwater pumping, you would use that. You wouldn't have like a frac tank or a dedicated dug settling pond for that type of thing.
So it's in the plan to have something like that available in case.
Correct. It's detailed. There's a manufacturer cross section or section
Okay.
of the bag I specified. I think it's called. Go ahead.
Okay. Also in the plan, section 5.5.2, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, it states, Nick, that use of chemical pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fertilizers, and landscape materials are not allowed on site. That's where my question about site. And looking at what Rory had provided some background, it states that in addition to mowing and weed eating, solar facilities often use some herbicides. Solar facilities generally do not spray over the entire acreage. And so the herbicides used at solar facilities are primarily 2-4-D and glyphosate, which is known as Roundup. The operation and maintenance plan that Rory provided talks about spot herbicide treatment being done during the first year, the second year, the third, fourth, and fifth year. So there's a reference to herbicide treatment in those periods. And also, Nick, in your report, you're separately here, it says requirements for storage and use of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. Once again, it states that the use of herbicides and pesticides shall not be allowed on site. So, of course, my question was, pesticides sounds like they will be on site, although your work for the stormwater makes a statement that they won't be allowed on site. Sounds like they will be used on site.
Roy and I crossed.
I will update the O and M to
Yeah.
reflect. I apologize that I did not correspond with Nick. I will make sure that we are in sync about they are not to be utilized.
Correct. And my main thing was they're not to be, I think what I was trying to convey with that, they're not going to be stored on site. There's not just going to be an area with a pallet with exposed chemicals. That's the important thing. It'd be maintenance crew would, if they're going to use it or needed to use it, they would bring it and remove it from the site. But if the commission or the planning board would recommend that they don't be used, then the site will still function, whether you use, spot treatments of Roundup or not.
They're gonna have.
I prefer-
You're thinking you may use Roundup.
No, but what I'm saying is.
You're gonna kill 'em.
You're talking to the wrong guy.
No. I'm saying if the commission prefers that it just gets completely removed, I think Rory's okay with that. We'll remove that part from the documentation Rory provided. I missed.
The likelihood is if you needed to use it, like occasionally the smartest thing to do for some kinds of invasives is spot treatment after they're cut.
Yep.
Then you would just come back to the commission. I could put any condition that says you come back to the commission and get that cleared.
I wouldn't want it to be used all the time. That's why I wrote that in there on my end. So, I mean, I agree with you guys. I don't, for something like this, it's not a manicured, residential lawn. We're trying to let it grow as well as possible. But we do need to manage invasives as well.
I guess my experience in having worked in landscaping is, once you have it available, it becomes pretty handy to use it more than you might have intended. Once it's on the site, it becomes something that, but it sounds like what you're saying is for the vegetation management plan, you're going to remove the spot herbicide section unless and have it be something that's approved by the commission.
We could put a note in there if it becomes a problem, or we can come up with some language that it says in there, if allowed by the commission, or, make a present, apply to the Conservation Commission with a detailed plan of where it's to be used in the future.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So also throughout the documents, there's reference to the handling of hazardous materials. And here we have something requesting a list of any hazardous materials proposed to be located on site in excess of household quantities and a plan to prevent their release to the environment as appropriate. And there's a list of possible pollutants in a couple places. And also, Nick, in your document, it talks to spill prevention and response. And it says the risk of significant spills at the site is limited and will most likely be associated with motor vehicle use or maintenance. And you say that the following action plan shall be implemented upon the spill or release. So my comment is the request is for a plan to prevent, and what's been provided is really what I see throughout the documents is what do we do when we've had a release, not a plan to prevent. So a plan to prevent that something, for example, would be, there's a concrete pad that exists, and anytime there's a transfer of anything that might be considered hazardous, or, you're fueling something, or that happens on the concrete pad. So that's I don't see anything about prevention. I see, how do we tend to spills? Spills or leaks would tend to spills in the event of a large spill, called DEP. So that, to me, across the documents, I don't see that piece of it.
So there's two components. There's long-term, so operation of the site, and then there's construction.
Right.
So long-term, extremely minimal. With maintenance vehicle maybe showing up once or twice a month
Yeah.
to, a pickup truck. But, we can provide a little bit more detail in the SWIP. I mean, the SWIP language is pretty standard for what's required of the NIPD's program. I mean, that's a very standard document. I modify it a little bit, but all that is pretty standard. And then you also have the general construction permit, which is part of the NIPD's program. It's another 200-page document that has a lot of information that contractors are well aware of when they work on large sites. But if we can work up something for scenarios, have that for next week if that's something you're looking for.
Yeah, and you actually have, I noticed you have section 5 pollution prevention controls. And I didn't see anything in what was provided. So that, I guess is this the answer to have something about if this is complete? It's got the pollutant generating activity column, the pollutants for pollutant constituents, and then the location on site. If this is complete, does that answer the
What page is that in the?
page 30? Yeah, it's section 5
Yeah.
under section
And-
5.1.
As detailed, that's a draft document, as we're not close to construction yet. That'll be finalized to current standards when we get to that point. But we just wanted to provide the draft that shows it'll likely be a condition of approval that the final SWIP gets submitted to the Conservation Commission and most likely the Planning Board prior to any start of any activity with, pre-construction meeting to go over everything. Those are typically standard items. So,
All right, so I guess the takeaway is something about prevention.
yes.
Okay. And also eligibility criterion section, page 11. It says criterion C, discharges not likely to result in any short or long-term adverse effects to.
So I don't want to cut you off, but like I said, that's a draft document.
Okay.
That's the federal U.S. wildlife and fisheries section where we go through a process before we finalize the SWIP, and we go on to their website and get clarification of any endangered species. Now, we know through the natural heritage mapping, there's no endangered species. What will come up as I'm not going to say it's listed yet, was going to be the long-eared bat. So there'll be provisions for that, and the monarch butterfly, which is not a listed species yet, but it always comes up in every NIPD's permit I file. It's always the long-eared bat and the monarch butterfly. Monarch butterfly is not listed yet by the federal government, and this is only for federally regulated endangered species, I believe. So this has nothing to do with the Massachusetts plan, what's listed in the stormwater pollution prevention plan. But when we get to that point, we'll go through the process, the review through the Wildlife and Fisheries. They have like a website portal. I put the address in, I put information about the project, it gets reviewed, and then they generate what's called the consistency letter that says you're not going to impact the long-eared bat essentially in that area, but all that gets finalized. So a lot of the, like I said, a lot of those items are stormwater pollution prevention plan items, which, like I said, it's only a draft document
Yep.
showing that we will have a document in place and that will be finalized with conditions of approval and for all the boards and any additional requirements that come up with regards to erosion and sediment controls and other things like that. So, we'll dial that in before construction based on all the discussions we have with all the boards.
Okay, so I guess my takeaways then are, we talked about herbicides and what, and then this prevention area of pollution. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
need to take,
Come on. Gene or Melissa, either one of you have a comment on what was just said?
Nick handled it perfectly.
Thank you, Gene.
very good. We need to take a vote on the continuation. Yes,
I'm not available the week of the 15th. So I just want to throw that out there. Rory.
okay.
Somebody said it was the 15th. It's not. The
It's at the 15th?
15th is a Saturday.
Great.
Available that third.
What is it? It's whatever the third Wednesday is.
19.
19th, sorry. Okay, so it would be the 5th and the 19th that we're planning on meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll fit whatever leftover items there are into those two times. I want to take at least a preliminary vote before people get retired.
Would it be possible to discuss any like most of the engineering stuff during the 5th and like the noise stuff where like I can address most of those comments? Anything non-civil engineering related, project related, I'll be able to answer. If that's a possibility, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
So.
Thank you.
We can be doing, water district thing,
Might be, I don't know.
because that's what I had on here, that.
that's in the middle of the day.
No.
Oh, no, the Scantic, yeah, we do have another thing happening that day.
That's all
We
I
have
want to make sure.
A review of the Scantic Valley Water District
It's
NOI.
not going to be just you.
So,
So it'll be a long meeting because
Yeah.
another thing we got
I'm
to.
sorry.
I
for the
put both-
5th,
I put.
5th, got it.
For the 5th.
yeah, so it's going to be like half, max of half the meeting is going to be for the water district.
Still have them on first.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just because that's a finite thing, we can like do it, finish it.
These tend to go long.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of continuing to the 5th and the 19th?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, I'll sign it. He'll sign it.
two of them there.
All right, Patrick, any other final things?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Gene or Melissa, anything final before we sign off?
I'm all set.
No, thank you.
And I'll send you a request in the morning.
Sounds good. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you very
And
much,
you
ladies.
as well.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Do they need anything? Any board?
I have comments, any, I have sense. Stuff.